Why does the aura of an awakened woman scare people? It's a question that goes beyond the surface. It's not her words, her actions, or her anger. It is her presence. You felt it. You walk into a familiar space and the easy laughter freezes just for a moment. The smiles that greet you feel suddenly brittle. An invisible static crackles in the air. It's the energy she projects, and that simple, unadorned presence is terrifying to most. This isn't a social inconvenience. It is a profound psychological phenomenon. The answer to why this terror exists lies in the work of Carl Jung. What happens when a woman refuses to curate her own diminishment? When she hangs up the costumes of expectation that the collective unconscious has demanded she wear. In that single moment of refusal, she becomes a rogue element. She becomes a danger to a societal framework that relies on her being in pieces. This exploration will take us deep into the Jungian anatomy of that terror, to understand why your very integration is an earthquake to a world built on compliance. Carl Jung noted something profound about the psyche. The path to individuation is not a gentle stroll. It is a gauntlet. It demands that you sacrifice the comfort of conformity, that you sever ancestral loyalties, that you incinerate cherished illusions. And when a woman commits to this journey, when she takes the shears to the invisible tethers binding her to collective programming, she becomes something the system cannot absorb. She cannot be categorized. She becomes a living mirror, sharp and unyielding, a catalyst for chaos, a walking, breathing reminder of every truth that others have buried within themselves. You've likely witnessed the fallout already, ever since you started to honor your own integrity. Friendships that once felt like a comfortable old sweater now feel synthetic and shallow. The conversations suddenly ring hollow. Family members perhaps treat you with a new, polite distance, a subtle coldness even though you haven't been aggressive. You've done nothing wrong. You simply stopped being the chameleon. You ceased being the emotional dumping ground for projections that were never yours to carry. And that is the precise offense. In depth psychology, this ties into the mother complex, not just as a personal wound, but as a collective societal architecture. The unconscious mind of our culture holds an archetype of the mother, endlessly nurturing, self-abdicating, perpetually available, soft. This archetype isn't just a story, it's functional. It's the grease that keeps the machinery running. A system where feminine energy is codified as a public utility, meant to stabilize, to soothe, to complete everyone else. When a woman shatters this mold, when she refuses to be that utility, she no longer computes. She becomes a glitch in the collective code. The terror she inspires isn't that she has changed. The terror is that she is no longer manageable. Her integrated self cannot be neatly filed away into the old, familiar boxes. She is no longer just the mother, giving until she is empty. No longer just the friend, a bottomless well for everyone else's sorrows. No longer the partner who shrinks to make space. She simply is. And this state of being, a being that is not defined by its function or its service to others, is a profound existential threat to those who only know to relate to roles. Jung spoke of how the individual on the path of individuation will, without fail, come into conflict with the collective unconscious. This conflict isn't a possibility, it's a guarantee. Because individuation means divorcing your psyche from the invisible, powerful loyalties of the tribe. It means breaking the silent agreement, the one that says, be compliant, be pleasant, be useful. This agreement is never spoken, but it is enforced. And when you break it, the system retaliates. The reactions vary, but they all follow a script. Some will simply withdraw, offering no explanation. Others become masters of passive aggression, accusing you of changing as if it were a betrayal, and many will project onto you everything they refuse to see in themselves. Your boundaries are called arrogance. Your self-preservation is called coldness. Your clarity is called selfishness. These labels are not descriptions of you. They are translations of their fear of your newfound sovereignty. What does it mean to no longer be available? It doesn't mean you are cruel or closed off. It means you are no longer functioning as an emotional mirror for anyone who walks by. The woman who is still asleep reflects back whatever others need to see. She affirms, she soothes, she validates. The awakened woman reflects back the truth, and the truth is deeply uncomfortable for anyone still invested in the illusion. Jung's concept of the shadow projection is the key to all of this. The shadow is the part of ourselves we deny, repress, and reject. And whatever we cannot own in ourselves, we will attack in others. The awakened woman becomes a lightning rod for the collective shadow. She is accused of being cold precisely because she has healthy boundaries. She is called selfish precisely because she protects her energy. She is seen as too much precisely because she refuses to fall back into the old, comfortable dynamics. These projections are not personal, even when they feel like a direct assault. They are the automated immune response of a system that sees its stability threatened. Your wholeness is a reminder of their fragmentation. Your clarity illuminates their confusion. Your peace exposes their internal chaos. You don't have to do anything, you just have to be. And that is enough to trigger their deepest unconscious fears. There is a phenomenon we could call a sacred envy. It's not overt hatred. It's a deeply buried, unconscious jealousy of your freedom, your wholeness, your courage to occupy your own space without apology. It's the bitterness of the spectator watching the person who dared to actually live. This envy often masquerades as moral superiority, as criticism, or as disdain. But at its core, it is a longing for the very thing they do not dare to claim for themselves. When you set a boundary, you are often accused of being cold. Why? Because a healthy boundary is interpreted as a personal rejection by those who are accustomed to transgressing, to taking, to controlling. Your firmness exposes their emotional dependency. They had built their entire sense of self on the assumption that you would remain soft, that you would yield, that you would be available. And when you are not, it feels like treason. But it is not treason against them. It is, finally, loyalty to yourself. Clarissa Pinkola Estes wrote of the wild woman, the instinctive, untamed, unexplainable force that lives deep in the feminine psyche. The awakened woman has reconnected with this primal nature. She is no longer a domesticated pet. She is a wolf. She has remembered her teeth, and this return to her psychic wilderness threatens any order built on the denial of female instinct. There are two kinds of power. The first is patriarchal power, which dominates, controls, and hierarchies. It needs submission to exist. Then there is archetypal power. This power does not negotiate, it does not justify itself, it does not apologize, it does not adapt. It simply is. The awakened woman embodies this second kind of power. And that is terrifying because it cannot be bargained with. It cannot be manipulated, bribed, or broken. Your aura isn't an esoteric fantasy. It is the energetic signature of an integrated psyche. When a woman has brought together her light and her shadow, her tenderness and her ferocity, her vulnerability and her strength, her presence becomes palpable. People feel it, even if they cannot name it. It is not your imagination. It is the real radiant broadcast of someone who has stopped betraying herself. In many mythologies, there is the figure of the Great Mother, but also the Terrible Mother. The goddess who not only creates, but also destroys. The one who not only nurtures, but also devours. This archetype represents the aspect of the feminine principle that does not obey, that consumes illusions, that exposes hard truths, and that does not fear transformative chaos. The awakened woman has touched this archetype. Not because she is destructive, but because she is no longer functional for others' fantasies. The process of individuation, as Jung described it, is alchemical. It is the process of turning lead into gold. The base materials of the psyche, trauma, conditioning, fragmentation, are transmuted into integrity, consciousness, and presence. The awakened woman has passed through the critical stages of this transmutation. She is no longer the raw material that can be shaped by others. She is the gold that has found its own form. A moment comes when she stops explaining who she has become. Women who are still asleep are constantly justifying, explaining, asking for validation. The awakened woman simply inhabits her truth, without defense, without apology. This is often misread as arrogance, but it is simply authenticity without the mask. It is the refusal to contort herself to make others feel secure. You have probably noticed how your energy naturally recoils from rooms that do not honor it. This is not an aggressive act. It is a vibrational recognition. You feel in your body and in your soul when an environment, a relationship, or a group can no longer support your frequency. And so you leave, quietly, without drama, without a speech, because you understand that your energy is precious and it cannot be wasted on places that do not value it. Jung said that the individuated person is always, to some extent, alone, because they inhabit a rare frequency. This aloneness is not emptiness, it is fullness without dependency. The awakened woman does not experience this as a deficiency. She experiences it as proof of her integrity. She is not alone because she has failed. She is alone because her vibration no longer finds a match in the old structures. This is not a tragedy. It is an adjustment. It is an energetic realignment. The people who leave should leave. The places that feel foreign are foreign. This is not loss. This is clarity. This is the natural consequence of no longer betraying yourself. And while many fall away, others begin to appear. They are rare, but they are real. People who recognize your frequency because they have walked the same path. There is a vast difference between being loved and being respected. Women who are still asleep are loved because they are functional within the emotional ecosystem of others. They fill a role, they stabilize, they comfort, they complete. The awakened woman is often no longer loved in this way. But she is respected, or she is feared. And both of respect and fear are closer to the truth than the false warmth of a functional affection. The great turning point is this. She stops trying to be palatable. She stops trying to be understandable. She stops trying to be convenient. Her aura makes people afraid? So be it. That is not her problem. It is not her responsibility to shrink herself to soothe the insecurity of others. Her primary task is to be whole, and if that wholeness rattles others, it says everything about them, and nothing about her. In Jung's psychology, there is the Anima and the Animus, the inner archetypes. For women, the Animus is the inner masculine force, the part that brings clarity, decisiveness, and boundaries. For centuries, many women have suppressed their animus so as not to appear threatening. The awakened woman has integrated her animus. She has fused that inner masculine clarity and strength with her feminine depth and intuition. This integration is what makes her complete, and it is this completeness that others cannot grasp. There is a silent pact in all families and social groups, an emotional contract that is never spoken but always expected. Be available. Be soft. Be adaptable. Don't be too much. When a woman breaks this pact, the system reacts with punishment. Not open aggression usually, but with exclusion, with silence, with subtle invalidation. This is the price of authenticity, and she pays it willingly. Jung knew that individuation requires solitude, not as a punishment, but as a necessary phase. The awakened woman experiences this solitude not as a penalty for her wholeness, but as a testament to her transformation. She is not lonely because she has failed. She is sovereign because she has succeeded. Succeeded in staying true to herself, even when it meant losing the old bonds. This solitude has a specific quality. It is luminous. It is conscious. It is chosen. It is not the desperate loneliness of one who has been abandoned. It is the sovereign solitude of the lighthouse keeper who has decided to no longer remain in spaces that diminish her soul. It is solitude as a sanctuary, as a sacred ground, as a return to self. And yet, as the crowd recedes, something subtle happens. There are people, few but powerful, who are magnetically drawn to her frequency of light. These are not random encounters. These are soul-level recognitions, people who have walked the same path, who have shed the same skin, who know the same luminous solitude. When such people meet, words are often unnecessary. They recognize each other by the vibration. The awakened woman is no longer looking for belonging on the outside. She is not seeking a group that gets her. She is not hunting for validation that her being is acceptable. She is her own sacred territory. She belongs to herself. And that is enough. This inner knowing, this deep rooting in her own truth, makes her immune to the judgments of the world. There is a moment in the individuation process where you realize, you are not here to be liked. You are here to be whole. This is a radical, terrifying, and liberating realization. It frees you from the tyranny of other people's expectations. It frees you from the need to explain, to justify, to defend. You are what you are, and that is not an apology. It is a fact. In the alchemical tradition, there is the nigredo, the blackenings, where everything falls apart. Then comes the albedo, the whitening, the purification, and finally the rubedo, the reddening, which signifies the final integration. The awakened woman has walked through these phases. She has faced the darkness, the dissolution, the confrontation with her own shadow. She has purified, released, and transformed, and now she stands in the rubedo, the full integration, where all opposites are united within her. This integration does not look like perfection. It looks like authenticity. It is the ability to be both soft and firm, both vulnerable and strong, both receptive and boundaried. This paradoxical wholeness is what others cannot categorize. She doesn't fit in the boxes. She is too complex for simple definitions. You may wonder if it was right to walk this path, if the price was not too high, the lost relationships, the silent goodbyes, the profound solitude. But in the deepest part of your soul, you know, there was no other choice, not really, because the alternative was to continue to betray yourself, to continue to stay small, to continue to be available for projections that were never yours, and that was no longer an option. Jung spoke of becoming the self as the highest goal of the human psyche. Not adaptation, not functionality, but self-realization. The awakened woman has taken this goal seriously. She heard the call of her soul and she followed it, even when everyone else advised her to be reasonable, to be realistic, to not change so much. She followed the inner call, and it has brought her here to this place where your aura is visible, where your presence is palpable, where your wholeness can no longer be hidden. This is not a flaw. This is not a weakness. This is the result of years of brutal inner work. This is the evidence that you have undergone the process that most people fear. You have found yourself, and now you radiate what you are. It is crucial to understand, your aura doesn't make people afraid because you are doing something wrong. It makes them afraid because you are doing something true. It makes them afraid because you have stopped conforming. It makes them afraid because you are no longer controllable. And in a world built on control, predictability, and conformity, your simple, authentic presence is a revolutionary act. But you are not here to confirm this world. You are here to live your truth, and if that truth frightens others, then that is their path, not yours. You cannot make yourself small to make others feel large. You cannot dim your light to avoid blinding others. That would be a betrayal of your soul. And that is no longer negotiable. The awakened woman carries a legacy, even if it is unspoken. She doesn't leave behind books or teachings or manifestos. Her legacy is her existence, the fact that she had the courage to become whole, the fact that she was not broken by the expectations, the judgments, and the projections. Her life itself is the message, and this message reaches others even in its silence. There are women who see you, and they feel something inside them stir, something awakening. They can't name it, but they feel it. Your existence gives them silent permission to begin their own journey, not because you preach it, but because you live it. This is the most powerful form of transmission, not through words, but through being. Jung once said that the greatest gift we can give to the world is our own individuation. Not because we serve others with it, but because in becoming whole we alter the collective unconscious itself. Every woman who awakens changes the energetic structure of the collective. She breaks patterns that have existed for generations. She opens pathways that were previously closed. Her awakening is not just personal, it is transpersonal. You are part of this movement even if you feel alone. There are more of you than you know. Women who are quietly awakening, silently shedding their chains, gently but firmly walking their own path. You are not isolated. You are the pioneers of a new level of consciousness, and even though the path is solitary, you are not alone. The fear that your aura triggers is not your problem to solve. It is the problem of those who are not yet ready to see their own chains. It is the problem of those still living in the illusion that conformity equals safety. It is the problem of those who have not yet understood that true freedom always begins with solitude. You cannot help them take that step. You can only show them by living that it is possible. And as you live, as you simply are who you are changing the world, not with a shout, not with drama, but with the quiet, unshakable power of your presence. With the profound loyalty to your own soul. With the refusal ever again to make yourself small. That is the revolution, not because you are fighting, but because you have stopped betraying yourself. There will be moments when you doubt, moments when the solitude feels heavy, moments when you wonder if it wouldn't just be easier to go back, to fit in again, to be available. But in those moments, remember, you cannot go back. Not really, because you have seen the truth. You have touched your own soul. And once you have touched your soul, you can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. The awakened woman lives in a different quality of time, not the hurried, linear time of productivity and functionality. She lives in the cyclical, spiral time of the soul. She follows her own inner rhythm, not the metronome of the outer world. This makes her unpredictable, and that is frightening. But it is also what makes her free. Freedom is not the absence of bonds. Freedom is the ability to only form the bonds that are true to your soul. Freedom is the sovereignty to choose where your energy goes and where it does not. Freedom is the clarity of knowing who you are, even if everyone else needs you to be someone different. You have earned this freedom, and it is more precious than any sense of belonging you may have sacrificed to get it. If you are hearing these words and something deep inside you is resonating, then you know. You are not on this path by accident. There are others walking this same journey.